From living in luxury to becoming the most feared gunslinger in the West overnight, this woman's story is pure awesomeness.
Welcome back, everyone, to our channel, where we bring you the craziest and weirdest stories from the American West. And today we have a hell of a good one for you. So stick around and don't miss any details, or you might just miss some very important history. Today we will tell you the story of Laura Bullion, who went from being a normal housewife to the deadliest female gunslinger in the Old West.
But before we get into it, remember to hit that like button if you're ready to start your engines and get them ideas flowing. Also, stick around until the end of the video to hear about an infamous outlaw who had an uncanny ability to escape danger. You won't want to miss this one. In the late 1800s, the Oklahoma Territory was a rough-and-tumble place with more than its share of outlaws and gunslingers. One of the most notorious gangs that operated in the area was the Doolin-Dalton Gang. This gang of outlaws was led by the infamous brothers Bob and Emmett Dalton, and they were responsible for a number of robberies and murders throughout the West. The Daltons were known for their ruthlessness and their skill as marksmen, making them a force to be reckoned with.
Among the members of this ruthless gang was a man named Bill Tillman. He may not have been as well known as the Dalton brothers, but he was no less fearsome. In fact, there was a particular incident in which his cool-headedness under pressure saved the whole gang.
It was during a shootout in Ingalls, Kansas in 1892. They found themselves surrounded by law enforcement and things were looking grim. Then Bill Tillman took charge, helping them to regroup and get away. In the end, nobody even got hurt. That event became known as the Ingalls Shootout and remains one of the most famous stories of the Wild West. After the Ingalls Shootout, Bill Tillman's reputation as a skilled gunman grew, to the point that nobody wanted to mess with him. Fortunately, though, his luck would soon run out. On Christmas morning of 1893, while still in the middle of the gang, Tillman found himself trapped in a hail of gunfire. His horse was shot out from under him, and when he tried to crawl to safety, he was met with more bullets. To make matters worse, two of his fellow gang members were already dead. Unable to escape the deadly crossfire, Tillman drew his gun and fought back, killing several of his attackers. But despite his valiant efforts, he was ultimately killed in the shootout. And to add insult to injury, his body was left hanging from the nearest jail cell window. But here's where things get really interesting, because after Tillman's death, his widow, Laura Bullion, took her revenge. She was a force to be reckoned with, just like her husband was. And she was determined to avenge his death. After burying her husband, she set out to find the men who had killed him, traveling to the town where they had gone to hide. There she found them, and without hesitation, shot them all down. When people think of legendary female gunslingers of the Old West, names like Pearl Hart and Annie Oakley come to mind. But compared to Laura Bullion, their skills seem almost amateurish. Laura was a true prodigy with a gun, able to shoot a playing card in half at 20 feet. When the time came for her to defend herself, she didn't need much time to aim. Her reflexes were so fast that she could draw her gun and fire 6 shots before her target could even blink, and accuracy was just as impressive. She never missed her target and was once able to shoot the hat off a man's head at 75 yards. This kind of skill is truly remarkable and makes Laura stand out as one of the best gunslingers the Wild West has ever seen. The problem was that she wasn't around long enough to earn that title. Laura's path to becoming a gunslinger was a unique one. Unlike many others, she didn't grow up on a ranch or learn to ride and shoot from an early age. In fact, she was born and raised in New York City, far from the dusty saloons and open plains of the Wild West. So how did she become such a crack shot? Well, it's likely that her marriage to Bill Tillman played a big part in that. He was a professional outlaw and gunfighter, so it stands to reason that he would have taught Laura how to defend herself. After all, being married to an outlaw came with its own set of dangers, and it was important for Laura to be able to hold her own. Laura and Bill had met in New York, where she had been working as a prostitute. When they got married, she left her old life behind and moved to Oklahoma with her new husband. Together, they lived among the rough-and-tumble cowboys and outlaws of the territory, where she quickly learned the ways of the gunfighter. So while Laura didn't have the benefit of growing up in the Old West, she was able to learn the skills she needed to survive and thrive in this dangerous environment thanks to her husband's training. But now let's talk about Laura's legendary shooting skills. As we mentioned earlier, she was an expert with a gun, able to do things with a pistol that most men couldn't even dream of. One of the most impressive feats of her career happened in the town of Ingalls, Kansas, during a poker game in the local saloon. Laura was just an average person at the table when suddenly a fight broke out. People started drawing guns and firing wildly, and Laura found herself in the middle of a gunfight. But instead of panicking, she did something amazing. She pulled out her gun and fired 5 shots in quick succession, hitting each of her opponents squarely in the chest. Every single one of them dropped to the floor, defeated by Laura's lightning-fast reflexes and deadly accuracy. Nobody had ever seen anything like it before, and word of her skills spread like wildfire. Soon, people from all over the West were talking about the woman who could shoot 5 gunslingers in a row without missing a beat. There are also tales of Laura's abilities to shoot playing cards in half from 20 feet away. This feat is almost unbelievable, requiring a combination of perfect aim, hand-eye coordination, and a bit of luck. It's hard to imagine how anyone could hit a tiny card from that far away, let alone split it cleanly in half. But Laura supposedly did it all the time. She was so good that people would gather around just to watch her shoot, and she would often win money by betting on her ability to split cards in half. Sadly, Laura's time in the spotlight was short-lived. She was killed in a shootout in 1901, along with her friend Joe Bowden. The details of the incident are sketchy, but it seems that they were involved in a card game gone wrong. According to one version of events, Laura and Joe were playing poker with some unsavory characters when they were accused of cheating. Things got heated, and soon guns were drawn. Laura and Joe were outnumbered and outgunned, and they were both killed in the ensuing gunfight. Their bodies were buried together in an unmarked grave, and their story faded into obscurity. If you've been following along, you know that Laura was a force to be reckoned with. She could shoot a playing card in half at 20 feet and take down 5 gunslingers in a row without missing a beat. So what makes her the most feared gunslinger in the Old West? Well, it's not just her skills with a gun, it's also the way she used them. Laura wasn't afraid to use her guns to defend herself and those she cared about. She wasn't a law-abiding citizen, but she wasn't a criminal either. She was simply a woman who was willing to do whatever it took to survive in a dangerous world. She was a mother, a wife, and a friend, and she was fiercely protective of those close to her. If you messed with her family or her friends, you were in for a world of pain. Laura didn't care about your reputation or your status. She was willing to go toe-to-toe with the toughest and most feared men in the West, and she wasn't afraid to kill. Now, here's a question for you. Do you think Laura was justified in killing the men who had killed her husband? Was she right to seek revenge, or was she too quick to draw her gun? Let us know what you think in the comments below. While Laura Ballion's story is a fascinating one, there's another tale from the Old West that's equally intriguing. We're talking about the legend of Pat Sugo, the infamous outlaw who managed to escape certain death more than once. One time he was cornered by police in a building and things were looking really bad for him, but somehow he managed to escape through a window, even though it was locked. Another time he was hiding out in a cave when police approached. Despite being injured and outnumbered, he made a daring escape, leaving the lawmen baffled. Curious to know more about this legendary outlaw and his unbelievable escapes? Well, then be sure to check out our other videos about his incredible adventures. You don't want to miss out on these wild tales of the Old West. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And if you did, be sure to leave us a thumbs up. That way you won't miss any new videos. And if you'd like to learn more about the crazy and wild stories from America's past, then subscribe to stay up to date. See you next time.